Welcome everyone to our webinar today, which is improving website navigation. Every couple of weeks we have a webinar. We share with you a wealth of different information. We also go into the theory behind the test and the analysis after the test, because really that's where the value of conversion optimization is, through the actual analysis that we provide you with. And that's what you'll be experiencing today with this particular webinar. Join the conversation. You can join the conversation by tweeting us at invesp using hashtag invespcro. Our team members are standing by. They will receive the tweets. They'll be tracking. They'll be tweeting and responding to you throughout the presentation. I'm joined today by Khalid Saleh. My name is Ayat Shakari. I'm the co-founder and managing partner at Invesp. I've worked on 400 plus conversion optimization projects. I've worked with customers such as O'Reilly, Special Olympics, Discovery, and had great success with increasing online revenue for our different customers. And like I said, I'm joined with me today is Khalid Saleh.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
He's a recognized expert in the marketing industry, and he is a frequent guest on key media outlets such as CNN, BBC, France 24, and he's an in-demand speaker. And actually, he's going to be keynoting in Dubai just next month.
Yes, I'm actually very excited about this. This is going to be one of my first times keynoting in Dubai. It seems that we're running into some technical issues. Hopefully, everybody can actually see our screen. But now it seems everybody is able to see it.
All right, excellent. So what we're going to be covering today is category page design. What you might be seeing on my screen right now is a typical category page design. What we typically see is kind of this grid view and the different product listings. Sometimes with different customers, you also see a left navigation. So that is something to keep in mind. So based on this, what do you think, which design works best? Just having a grid view or having a left navigation as well?
So this is a question that we always hear from customers. Is there a best template that works for category pages? What you will learn today is that there are many templates that may or may not work for your website. There is no good answer. However, what you need to do is careful analysis, and based on that analysis, you need to look at your visitor behavior, you need to look at your visitor data, and based on that, come to the final conclusion of what is the best template that works well for your website.
So what we're going to be talking today is a particular case study. Our client based in Austin, Texas. They've their company was established in 1995. They're one of the largest websites that offers graphic printing on a variety of different products. So you could, print, for instance, a logo on a mug, on a tote, on a keychain. That's the type of business that they were in.
Now, what's interesting is we talk about the customer who's been in business since 1995. So they've been around for 20 years. And sometimes it's a bit challenging to work with some of these customers or clients because they are set in their ways. They built a design. Sometimes, especially if you work with a client that's, started from the garage and grew to a multi-million-dollar operation, they might have invested in the design, and it's difficult to convince them to look for better designs, although these designs actually result in generating more revenue, more cash for them in the bank.
Definitely, and you see that resistance kind of with the different customers that come to you. But for this particular customer, we had success with this test. We did this A/B split test, which means that we just had different variations, and a number of different customers were routed to the different variations on this particular test.
So one of the questions that we always get asked is, and we'll cover this a little later, but maybe we'll jump and cover it right now, is for the different types of testing that we do, are we always looking for a macro conversion, somebody for an e-commerce website, somebody placing an order? Are we looking for a micro conversion, somebody flowing from one page to the next? And the reality of it, most of our testing, most of our clients that we work with, we are focused on the primary conversion goal for each website, and for an e-commerce website, we are looking for an increase in conversions.
Absolutely. And, again, when you're analyzing the site, in the beginning, it may be just a focus on the macro conversion, on the actual conversion rate. And then you may go and look at the different, metrics throughout the site and measure those. So it really depends on what you're looking for. So let's go back to our test. For this particular test, what we wanted to provide the customers with was sufficient scent to increase buyer momentum, increasing conversion rate, and reducing visitor uncertainties.
So Ayat, the hypothesis that you're using for the test is quite a bit wordy. So if you want to break that down for our webinar attendees.
Absolutely. So what we mean by sufficient scent is what we're trying to provide the customer with is essentially a trail that leads the online shoppers to conversion. And really for scent, there are two drivers. And the drivers are user experience and the actual offer. So you want to make sure that the user experience is a good experience for the customer in order for them to move forward and for them to be persuaded to continue on with purchasing. And the offer obviously has to be something that would, again, persuade them to move forward.
So the concept of visitor scent is very critical to conversion optimization. Think about a visitor who goes on Google, for example, searches for a particular product that you are offering. And you're running a PPC, a pay per click ad on Google for that particular product. I view that product on Google. That's the initial trail. I start almost like smelling that product, and the end is actually placing an order with your website. So I click on that particular ad because I like the way you had a special offer, maybe a 10% discount. I land on your website, and what you want to do is you maintain that scent. The same offer you made on the PPC ad is the same offer that you are going to display on the different pages. You're going to have continuity. So there is a trail that leads at the end into to conversion.
So for this test, the control, this is the actual main control category page. And what you're going to see kind of different elements highlighted. You're going to see kind of a grid format of the subcategories displayed. Second, for the customer, in order for the customer to kind of pick up that scent again and continue on with that buyer momentum, there is that search box. And they have also the drop-down top navigation. And then another very interesting thing to note on this particular page is that the customer displayed a large product display banner. So this is a kind of a banner that's taking up prime real estate on the page. From our customer's perspective, what they're trying to do for their visitor is kind of display and discuss what they have on this particular page. And this is variation 1. So what we did with this particular variation is, as you can see, we removed that large product display banner. Variation 2, again, we have added a refined search and we've removed that product display banner. I just want to note again, the refined search is in order for the customer to pick up the scent, as we had mentioned before. That is the objective that we're looking for here. Then for variation 3, we have the refined search, and we also included another element on this particular variation. We've included the top kind of a product carousel, which displays the top selling products within this top level category. The refined search, and of course we removed the product display banner. And here is a side-by-side look for all of the different variations. So based on this, we have a question for you. Which design, in your opinion, generated the most sales? And now Khaled's going to be letting us know once the answers are coming in, if you could just type it in.
So we have a poll actually going. So if you look in the poll feature in the GoToWebinar, it's asking whether it's variation 1, variation 2, or variation 3 actually generated an increase in sales. So you can use that to answer. And let me launch the poll. So here we go. So which variation generated an increase in sale? And we're waiting for our attendees to answer. So
it seems like there's lots of people that think that variation 2 generated some the increased sales.
So I will give people like 5-10 more seconds, and then we'll start reading and see which one actually increased sales. Okay, so we see close to quite a bit of people voted, and we are going to close the poll. So let's see. So we see variation 1, variation. There's 3 votes for variation 1, variation 3, variation 3, variation 3. Mike, variation 3. Variation 2, actually, we get 2 votes. So it's almost like splits evenly between them.
And the winner is, with a 50% increase in website conversion, variation 3. And as you can see, that is the variation that had the refined search and the carousel. So kind of drilling down on the actual results, 50% increase in conversion. What you can see here is that variation 3 with a 95% confidence increased 50%. From the actual original. Variation 1 also displayed an increase, which is actually interesting to me that it was variation 1 that outperformed variation 2. Now, if you recall from the designs, variation 1 was the one that we just removed the large product display banner. Variation 2 included the refined search, and that had the lowest actual uplift from the different variations that we had going.
So Chris, and Chris would know who he is, was the fastest to answer and to get the correct answer. It was variation 3 with an amazing 50% uplift in conversion. And when you look at the graph below, and this is more of a recent test we did kind of towards the end of last year, variation 3 outperformed the original, the control, almost every day, and outperformed it tremendously, generating a tremendous increase, a great increase in sales.
Absolutely. So there are some other factors to consider here, and there are other numbers that we look at. What do these numbers tell? What we're looking at here are the page per session, the average visit duration, and the actual bounce rate on these pages. And what we'll see is, you could see on variations 3, 1, and 2 that there is a decrease in pages per session, average visit duration, and in some cases even the bounce rate. There is a higher bounce rate in that case. So what do these numbers tell us, and does this impact our decision in the end to go with the actual variation 3 as opposed to the original? If you recall, the hypothesis behind this test was to increase the actual scent on the page and increase actual buyer momentum as a result of that. So again, visitors coming to the site, you want to make sure that you increase the momentum, make sure that they continue to move on and move forward with the purchase process. By seeing this reduction in page per session, which is actually very close and there's not much of a difference, we're actually very comfortable with these numbers because it tells us that scent was increased, that the customer is spending less time on the site, which means that they're able to make the purchase actually much faster, which is the goal that we were trying to achieve.
And this is perhaps against what people are used to. Analytics packages get us used to something that you always want to see an increase in pages per session, or a visit depth, as some like to refer to it. You would always like to see an average visit duration increase. However, this varies from one website to the next. If I'm a content-based website, I want my visitors to visit more pages, to view more pages. I want my visitors to spend more time on my website. If I'm an e-commerce website, a visitor comes, he finds the product, he likes the price, he converts right away. Great, that's exactly what I want. Now, it could be argued that the more pages a visitor views on an e-commerce website might result in an increase in average order value. It's a bit tough, and that's perhaps a much deeper philosophical question, and something that we can actually get into on a different webinar.
Exactly, and I think it just depends. You always have to remember that whatever test you're running and what the hypothesis behind it and the theory behind it, that's what counts, and that's what we're kind of measuring at this point in time. Just to go back, I didn't talk about the bounce rates. The bounce rates are quite close. Variation 2, of course, with the high 37% bounce rate, we did eliminate that early on because of that number. But the other ones, they're close enough that they didn't alarm us in a way that made us kind of stop and think about this particular page and whether or not this should continue on.
Yeah, so when we're looking at this, perhaps variation 2, variation 2 was the only one that we worried about because we saw a 10% uplift in the bounce rates. That's something that we don't typically like. But for the other ones, you're talking 34 to 35%, less than 5% uplift, and that is very, very typical. So it's not something that we pay close attention to.
So conversion goals.
So when it comes to conversion goals, what you need to think about is there are always several conversion goals for a website. With several conversion goals on a single page, you should start by prioritizing the different goals, determining the primary conversion objective of the page. We'll give you a good example even from this particular case study, although we did not get into it. Sometimes the primary conversion goal on a product page is that click on the add to cart button. That's exactly the main objective on the particular page. However, I might provide the visitor with other options. They can click on the chat to talk to customer service. They might add their email to an email list. They might click on related products. All these are other conversion goals. If I'm not able to persuade the visitor to take my primary conversion, then I would want the visitor to take one of those secondary conversion goals. However, the primary conversion goal on a page drives all of its elements. Goals that distract visitors from the primary conversion goal should be either reworked or removed. If I want, my main goal is to get the visitors to click on the add to cart, then any distractions around the main area, the prime real estate on the page, should be removed and focus on that primary goal.
All right, so again, we're going to go back to the winner and look at it, because what we want to do is we've already gone through the test and told you kind of the overall overview, but we want to go into a little bit more detail and analysis on the actual winner. Just to remind you, the winner was variation 3 that had the refined search and it had the carousel as well. Again, what do those elements mean? Why did we include those elements? And does that mean that this has to be kind of the next, a category page template that we should consider for all different category pages? And that's what I'm going to ask you. Do we think that the left navigation and product carousel, they increase the scent and the buyer momentum? Is this something that should be included across all e-commerce sites? So this is a question to the audience. If you guys could let us know what you think. We like our webinars to be a little bit interactive in order for you to have a chance to have that dialogue with us.
So the question is, why do left navigation and the product carousel in this particular case result in an increase in buyer in scent and buyer momentum? We'll just use the question feature over here and see what results we get. And we'll give you guys a couple of seconds just to answer. Okay, so the answers are coming in because they increase the ability of the visitor to find what they are looking for. Mike, let's see what's Mike saying. Sorry, Mike, let's see. Because they increase the visitor trust in the website, increased engagement of the visitor. All of these are correct answers.
Absolutely, and that's, I think, essentially what we're looking for is what are the elements that produce that scent and that buyer momentum. Again, there isn't a one answer necessarily to what can produce that. So we have an example here of Danskin, and what Danskin does is, and this is something similar to what we've seen in the case study that we already showed you, they have a very large product display banner. And this is kind of at the top of every category. And it actually takes up the majority of the page. And what you see below it is the refined search. Now, the problem is, again, what we're doing is by having a large banner, it is presenting customers with obstacles and preventing and impeding the scent that continues and gives the buyer actual momentum to move forward with the purchase process.
And this is something, when we looked at this page, we said, wow, you love to see pages like these, because there's a huge opportunity for an uplift. So we haven't done the testing for Danskin yet. However, we see just a great opportunity to increase conversion rates. We see that there's some issues with the filtration. The left nav disappears. It's not very clear. We were a bit confused actually initially when we looked at the page, and we had to think about it. And this is the last thing you want your visitor to do, is to be confused, have some fears, uncertainties, doubts, perhaps is the correct word to use over here, when they land on a page. No, you want them right away to know where to click on next, where to go to continue on that trail of scents.
Exactly. Don't make it a process. Make it very simple and easy for your for your visitor to find what they need to do next. Another example is dollar days. Again, another here on this particular page. Actually, I'm going to throw the question back to you. What's the problem with this page? Because there is a left nav. You might say, okay, well, there are sufficient opportunities for a customer to pick up, or a visitor, sorry, to pick up scent. So what is the particular problem on this page? And let's see what the audience has to say about this particular one.
Let's get some answers over here. It's horrible. I like that. Todd, lots of distractions, off-site links, sees our webinar attendees share our ideas.
So exactly, there is. But when you're providing scent to a customer, but you have so many different obstacles and so many other things that are taking away from that left navigation, what's the point? What's the point of having it? So that's exactly what our audience members are saying, that this page is cluttered. There's too much going on, and it's taking away, again, going back to the conversion goals from that primary goal on this particular page.
Now, what most people don't know, by the way, Dollar Days is an internet retailer top 500. One of the sites that's visited very well, and it's one of the sites that, we love our clients, but we always have to work really hard to convince them to make any change on their website.
Again, when you feel that your site is doing very well, sometimes you have resistance. But why would I leave money on the table? That's the question that you want to always ask yourself. Mm-hmm. So this is an example of Home Depot. Now, for this particular site, there isn't necessarily a problem that we see. On the contrary, we find that their filtration actually in their left nav is done very well. There is ample room for a customer to pick up scent, to find what they're looking for. There's so again, the usability on this particular site is excellent.
So we will show you the evolution of Home Depot and how their navigation changed over the years. So we'll look a couple of years back. This is the old navigation, a little hard to see, but they had the different categories, the brands, the pricing, the star rating. Now, this is the new left nav that they have. So as you see, in addition to the old 4 ways to filter, they have now about 12 different ways, category, brand, price, but this is for the refrigerator, just the page that we were just looking at. And as you see over here, they've added the capacity, the rating, the height, the operational features, the depth. And the goal from all of this is to provide their visitors with even more information to be able to locate what they're looking for, narrow down quickly, find what I'm looking for. Works really well for most visitors, works really well for the spontaneous type persona that is looking to convert very quickly.
Okay, so another audience question.
So is providing visitors with left navigation the solution to increasing scent on a website? So let's see some answers. So is left nav the solution to increasing scent? And we'll give you guys, it seems last time we actually moved on and answered, and there's some people still writing, so my apologies. We just want to we're trying to cut down the time for our webinars to 35 minutes. We used to do them at an hour. This is our first attempt at doing them at 35 minutes, so we'll see how that goes.
And we know that everybody has busy schedules. I mean, we know it from ourselves, so that's kind of the reason why we want to reduce the time.
Okay, so let's see. Okay, and we are getting. I thought left nav was an old style. Now I'm wondering. So.
Well, it's what we'd like to do. Keep you guys wondering. Okay, so there's an answer to, and we said this at the beginning of the webinar. We said that in general, there's no right answer to what we're telling you. We're not telling you put a left nav, put a product carousel, do this, do that. No, what we're saying is we want to improve buyer momentum. And when we say improve buyer momentum, that means enhancing usability and increasing the navigational options. This will help the customer better pick up the scent and undoubtedly increase conversion. So again, when I'm doing my analysis, that's what I want to do on my website is I want to look at the category pages and I want to see what are the ways that I can increase that momentum. So let's look back at the control. Again, we're going to do kind of an analysis of why we selected looking at, adding that refined search and adding that product carousel. What's happening with the control here is we've limited the buyer momentum to kind of a list view of subcategories. The scent is also reduced tremendously because of the large product display banner, and there are very few navigational paths for the customer. What we want you to do is, of course, always consider the visitor's eye path. What are they expected to do next? What do you want them to do next? What should they do next? And again, put yourself in the visitor's shoes. Is there sufficient buyer momentum for them to move forward? Another important insight is reduce scent to a single reducing scent, to a single outlet ignores a different type of website visitors in terms of personas and buying stages. You have different customers coming in. They're coming in with different personas. They're coming in with at different buying stages. So how can I make sure I address all of their questions and needs and wants and concerns?
And this is something that you always want to think about. Different visitors land on your website. Different personas. The spontaneous type ad is more the logical type, and we shop very, very differently. We might be using Google versus Yahoo, paid advertising versus organic. I'm ready to buy. She's still researching. And that single page that we both landed on needs to be able to cater to me, who's ready to buy, very spontaneous, and to her, who is very methodical about researching, and she's still not ready to buy. And you don't want to push her too hard, not to be too salesy. So finding that right balance, that's what conversion optimization is all about.
So here we're looking at the control. When we did our analysis, what we found is on the control, there was something called a very high pre-product page abandonment rate. What this points to is that many customers are leaving, or many visitors are leaving the website before they actually get to the product pages. So this shows us that visitors are having trust and confidence issues. They are, facing different fears and uncertainties and doubts, which is FUDs. They're struggling to find the product that they want. So this is something that we really wanted to ensure that we pinpointed and addressed.
So pre-product page abandonment rate is a metric that we definitely, for all of our e-commerce websites, ask them to implement, set up goals or funnels on their website to be able to track. It's basically tracking the percentage of visitors that land on your website, regardless of wherever they land, but never make their way all the way to the product pages. And if you're an e-commerce website and the visitors are not getting to the e-commerce product pages, you've lost the battle, because that's where the conversion starts. So you want to keep track of that pre-product abandonment rate, pre-product page abandonment rate.
Another thing that we look at is we look at the customer, the product to
category page view ratio. So basically, and let me jump in over here. So for every category that the visitor visits on your website, for each category, typically, if you think about it, as you shop yourself online, you're most likely viewing anywhere between 4 to 6 products for each category on average. And that's really what we try and see. Now, this might vary from one vertical to the next, but 4 to 6 is a good metric. If we start seeing that ratio drop below 2, or if we start seeing it increase above 9 or 10, we start getting worried, because that tells us that there's an issue with the categorization, with the navigation on the website. We need to really re-examine some of those metrics. So it's those two numbers you want to keep very close track of when you're evaluating an e-commerce website.
So just going through our designs very quickly, again, what we did with each of these particular variations is we tried to reduce that overall customer anxiety. We tried to remove any obstacles that were going to impact the continuity of scent and continuity of that buyer momentum. So by removing that large banner, that was something that was successful with all 3 of our different variations. For variation 3, the winning variation, we added the refined search and the carousel. Now you might ask yourselves, okay, well, why did we add both of those? Again, we're trying to address different customers at different stages. Some customers are ready to see products and they want to see a variation of different options, and that's exactly what we provided them with. And the results speak for themselves. We saw a 50% increase in conversion rate at a 95% confidence level.
So this is perhaps, and this is one of the areas that we want to kind of finish the webinar with, is the confidence levels that we conduct our experiments at. This is something that I get asked quite a bit. It's almost guaranteed in every conference I present at, is what confidence level do you guys aim for? 95%, 99% is great. However, there are times if you're running an experiment or a test for 2 to 3 weeks and you're not able to hit that 95%, but you're hitting 85, 86, 87%. Well, that tells me that for every 100 visitors that land on your website, 86%, there's an 86% chance that the new design will beat your original design. And I will take that. So you don't want to be very rigid when you're dealing with conversion optimization. Many scientific experiments are done at 85% confidence level.
So again, our decisions are always based on understanding visitor behavior and of course visitor data in order for us to come up with the test. So here's a quick summary of the different marketing insights.
So with several conversion goals on a single page, you should start by prioritizing the different goals, determining the primary conversion objective of the page. Number 2, primary conversion goal on the page drives all of its elements. Goals that distract visitors from the primary conversion goal should be reworked, should be or removed.
You want to improve buyer momentum by enhancing usability and increasing navigational options. This will help the visitors better pick up scent and undoubtedly increase conversion. Reducing scent to a single outlet ignores the different type of website visitors in terms of personas and buying stages. We will have these slides available to you. So please, by Monday, we'll have that available to you on our website.
Now, if you are interested in optimizing your website, if you are interested in getting more information, just a couple of quick final notes. This is the last slide. You can purchase our book from Amazon.com. It's an Amazon.com bestseller, Conversion Optimization, the Art and Science of Converting Prospects into Customers. Talks about the conversion framework, the different elements that we deploy on different websites when we are conducting a conversion optimization project. Also, the other thing that you can do if you are interested in optimizing your website, you can visit our website, click on the Contact Us Today. We have a couple of options that we're rolling out this year. We are doing conversion rate audits for the smaller websites that are just looking for a one-on-one session. And who knows, it might be with me, it might be with Ayat or one of our conversion optimization specialists, where we sit with you for 45 minutes, give you our feedback about the things that we see broken in your website, or we can go for the full length website conversion optimization. We're trying to bring these webinars every couple of weeks, so please stay tuned. If you like the webinar, please share the slides, share the recording with your colleagues. We would greatly appreciate that, because we ultimately want to create a community around the knowledge that we are sharing with you, and we truly appreciate our clients who allow us to share their experiments and the test results with our audience. With that, we appreciate you guys attending, and we will talk to you soon in our next webinar.